Hi, I'm Mark Strickson, Turlough from Doctor Who, and this is the Sirens of Audio. Enjoy.
Who are you?
A friend.
What is this place?
There's no need to be afraid.
Then tell me who you are.
Your podcast guardian. One who has your interests at heart.
Am I dead?
Merely on hiatus.
I don't really think I'd care if I were. I hate Doctor Who.
You would like to leave fandom?
Is it possible?
All things are possible.
Then get me out of this, please.
But first, we should have to discuss terms. We haven't much longer. I need to know that I have your assent to our arrangement. You will find me the most accommodating of partners.
But subscribing? I'm not sure I could go that far.
You will be subscribing to one of the most fascinating podcasts in the universe. They call themselves the Sirens of Audio.
Why can't you subscribe to them? You have the powers.
I may not be seen to act in this. I must not be involved.
I need time to think.
There is no time. Yes or no?
Don't send me back to fandom. Please.
Yes or no?
Yes. G'day audiophiles, this is the Sirens of Audio, the show that explores the universe of Doctor Who and other cult TV in the audio medium. I'm Dwayne.
And I'm Philip. G'day, Dwayne. G'day, audiophiles.
How you going, Philip? Getting ready to go to the UK?
Yes, I'm getting lots of things organised. I've got my list of things to do still. I've got my list of people. I've got a map between Doctor Who companions and doctors that I'm seeing all around the UK.
It's hard, but someone's got to do it.
And yeah, we've got... Oh, I know. And we've got theatre dates set up with Louise Jameson. She's coming into London. We're going to go see a show together.
How can you cope?
Yes, I'm going to have a ball. So yeah, watch my Twitter and my Facebook, because I'll be having lots of photos of who I'm having meals with and catching up with, and I'm seeing the family to see the sights while I'm going off with different companions and doctors.
Yeah, thanks, family.
It'll be fun.
Very good. Today on the show, we are going to be speaking with someone that we have waited a long time to speak to. Don't know why, but it's Mark Strickson, who played, of course, Turlough with the Fifth Doctor in the 1980s, early 1980s, for about a year or so on television, and has done many Big Finish audios over the years too. Not so many as others, because he lives so far away. He lives pretty close to us, actually. So it's a wonder we haven't chatted with him before now, but it's going to be good to catch up with Mark. It's been a while for all of us.
Yeah, it's been a while since we've had a companion doctor on, so it's good to bring one on. And we've still got a few more to organise and get on, but we're getting them bit by bit.
Yeah.
We're building our setup.
Yeah, well, we're nearly at not many more to go.
No, there's not many more to go. A few more. There's still a few more I'm keen to get.
Very good. All right, so we'll be chatting with Mark a little bit later about some of his history. Of course, his time on Doctor Who and some of the other things he's been doing, what he's been up to, and maybe have a little, not an in-depth chat, but I just want to mention one particular audio story that has really stood out to me with Mark in it, starring with Peter Davison, and that's Lougarou, an early story. It was number 20 in the Big Finish main range. It was I think it was the first Fifth Doctor story that I heard on audio, and it's always stuck out to me, and there are some really fascinating things about that story. There's a lot to talk about. We'll go in depth, but I just want to talk to you about a couple of things before we get on to our chat with Mark. But before we do talk about Lougarou, there is one thing we need to do. Philip, do you know what that is?
Go down the rabbit hole.
Yes, it is. Quick, let's go. All right. So, once again, I've cheated and I've preempted you. I'm not going to hit you straight away with the question because I told you about 2 minutes ago the question. I want to find out, Philip, how you feel about the companions that we've been able to have on audio who on television they were mostly with other companions. So the main ones are Adric, Nyssa and Turlough, and on audio they had the opportunity to travel with the Doctor alone for a while. I can see where Nyssa and Adric fit in. I've never quite worked out how Turlough could fit in because of the way Resurrection of the Daleks and Planet of Fire seem to be so connected. So if you remember, please tell me. But I'll take it anyway. I'll suspend my disbelief when it comes to Turlough travelling with the Fifth Doctor alone. But do you like the chance that that those characters have had to travel alone with the Doctor?
I'd always assumed that Turlough fitted between Resurrection of the Daleks and Planet of Fire. I thought they could easily put a gap in there, but maybe I'm wrong. Are they talking about Tegan at the beginning?
Well, I watched Planet of Fire before we spoke to Mark the other day, and the Fifth Doctor references Resurrection of the Daleks and the departure of Tegan at the beginning of Planet of Fire. So there isn't really a gap there. No, there isn't a gap.
Well, I think they must have just had an adventure that made... There's an adventure there that made the Doctor think about Tegan and reference her.
Yeah.
Anyhow, it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
I do think... Who do I think works really well? Well, you know what? Yeah, to be perfectly honest, I'm pretty sure they're the only three, unless you count Caroline Ford with the Unbound series travelling with the Doctor alone. But in terms of those three, yes, you've got Adric, you've got Turlough, and you've got Nyssa. I think all three actually work brilliantly, in some ways better than with a crowd. So, actually, I'll start with Nyssa. I think Peter Davison always believed that Sarah Sutton's character of Nyssa was actually the best companion for the Doctor. And I do think that Big Finish proved that that's true. I think the adventures with Peter Davison and Nyssa are great, the way they bounce off each other, her gentle nature, her caring nature. They're both fairly similar in terms of they're both people. They're both actually quite kind and generous towards others. But it actually sets them up really well to have really nice adventures together. I think the Doctor's got a really genuine concern for Nyssa, a real protective streak over her, which he doesn't have in the same way for Tegan. And so I think that protectiveness actually makes Nyssa feel a bit more vulnerable in one sense. But also she's allowed to shine better, and her and the Doctor are able to have these almost equal conversations because they're both so intelligent, they're both so science-driven, they both see the world in very, very similar pictures. So I do think that Sarah Sutton does really well as Nyssa, and those adventures are great. There's not enough with Turlough, but I do think Mark Strickson and Peter Davison once again perform really beautifully with each other. Mm. And actually, I do actually like, and we haven't had enough, a male companion Doctor. When you actually have a strong male lead, and the show was always had strong male leads at the beginning, and so it really wasn't until you got to Katie Manning where you suddenly had just a female Doctor. In our head, when we think of the Doctor, we think of a female companion, but that actually hasn't been. That wasn't probably. Actually, I'd have to work it out whether that's been the majority of the case, because although you had Katie for 3 years and Sarah for 1, but then Harry joined for a year. And then you have Leela by herself and Romana. So you have those sort of that spread of female Doctor companion, but then you go back into the groups again. So I do actually think, though, that male companions work really well. So you look at Ian and the Doctor, Steve and the Doctor, Jamie and the Doctor. All those characters and the Doctor work really nicely off each other. And I do think the TARDIS is lacking when often it hasn't got a male in it, provided the male can actually. Well, I guess originally the male was always put there to be a hero. So, because William Hartnell was old, he needed a male to do the big, strong stuff and the fight sequences. The reality is when Patrick Troughton came in, it wasn't quite so important. He was able to do a lot more stuff himself, but he still had that adventure side. Of course, John Pertwee definitely didn't need anyone to do adventure. But Turlough and the Doctor, great time together, and I really enjoy Adric too, because I just think it's Adric and Tom do some stuff together, don't they? I think Adric is at his best with Tom Baker.
Yep.
When you look at the Keep of Traken, when you look at Legopolis, I think it's the best Tom is towards the end of his reign. It's the best that Matthew Waterhouse is. Tom lifts Matthew's performance in a really powerful way, and the two of them really do work well together. I know there was a lot of tension between the two of them as actors. Watch our interview with Matthew Waterhouse if you want to know more. You should have come to our event. But it's knowing the history of what's going on in the background, but still seeing them work together, I think it was really powerful. And Matthew Waterhouse is the best he is with Tom. And once again, it allows the character to do a lot more. Yeah, so I think the single companions with the Doctor work really well. What do you think, Dwayne?
Yeah, I specifically think Matthew Waterhouse is sensational with Tom. I'm not sure if Big Finish served him that well with audio stories. Was he alone though with Tom? I'm not sure if he was. Maybe only in the audio novel.
I think it was
with Lala, wasn't he? On Big
Lala,
Finish. So he never got a chance to do that.
Yeah.
So it's only the TV stories where he's on his own. I did think of another audio companion that they have got on her own, who was normally with someone else, and that's Dodo. And I think that works quite well.
Oh, of course.
So yeah, they had the time. They've done the post Savages Dodo and the Dot between the Savages and the War Games. So they've slotted that little section in there. So I think that works quite well. It's not going to be for everybody because it's full recast, but I think it serves the character well. And Lauren plays Dodo beautifully. Not like Jackie Lane, but she plays it in her own way, which is still very, very lovable, if you ask me. I've always loved.
I can say I think Jackie Lane is really. As I say, Jackie Lane I think is really hard done by. The episodes that we have quite a few bits and pieces with Jackie Lane. Yes, her voice changes, but that's not her voice. They keep changing her voice in every episode, and they keep saying, "Do this time," and she does what she's told. But you look at the gunfighters, you see the first two episodes of the War Machines, the stuff that the Ark. We actually have quite a fair bit of Dodo, and I really like her. I think she's not served well by her ending. They just sort of shove her off, and they want to go in a whole new direction with modern 60s, late 60s Doctor Who. So I think she's an old fashioned companion they cast, who they then shaft sideways, and they don't know what to do with. But I think the character is really good, and Big Finish have certainly done a wonderful job with the character and showing what the character's potential was. But as you say, because it's all recasting, a lot of people won't watch that. But I listen to it. I think it's great.
What do you think about when Big Finish has added companions? So we had Perry, who was always alone on television with the Doctor, getting added with Eramem, and Ace, who was always alone as well, Hex gets added to that crew as well, and then later on Mel comes back, an older Mel. What do you think of those dynamics?
Big Finish have created some of the best companions Doctor Who's ever had. And so, I mean, even Smythe is my favourite in terms of with the Sixth Doctor. But Hex is such a complex, clever character with his own little story arc. And he's a real 3D complex character. I think how he plays with Ace in terms of, she's a bit older, a bit wiser. He's like a younger brother to her. But and also he's very easily betrayed by the Seventh Doctor. He's a gentle soul. And so Hex is just wonderful and adds a whole new dimension to the Doctor Ace relationship. But they're getting quite overconfident with their abilities. They can basically solve it. Yeah, they're at the point where they can solve any problem at all. Hex brings a whole new vulnerability in. And so I think it's really cleverly played by Philip. I want to say Oliver. That's
Olivier.
It's pronounced in the French way. Olivier, thank you. I knew it was pronounced in the French way. Philip does an amazing job as a character, and your heart really goes out for him. Though in the end, you think, I found him a bit soft by the end. I thought just in terms of, you know who you're getting with the Doctor. You have to stop complaining about it. Stop whinging about who he is because you're with him and he hasn't changed. People want to change people because they've been with them for a long time. People don't change. You can't do that. So I do think
he did die
Hex
at one point, so
character.
He had a right to get grumpy towards the end there.
He did. Erin, I think, is wonderful. Like, she's such a brilliant character. Caroline Morris plays her so well. You couldn't cast her now because Caroline Morris is much too British and white to be an Egyptian queen. So the casting wouldn't be acceptable today. But so I'm glad we got who we did because the Erin and Perry stories are wonderful. the biggest problem with them is the fact that you actually just don't need the Doctor, because Perry and Eremem together are so entertaining, so distracting. They carry so much plot. There's a whole episode in the first story, the Scorpion one, that Eremem's in, because they do that is a historical,
Yes.
pure historical,
Yes.
and they do the whole pure historical trait of the Doctor has a week off. He's in a coma for a week, which I just laughed at. So Peter Davis actually isn't in a whole episode, and Eremem and Perry just carry the episode with no problems whatsoever. And so, I think that them together is just wonderful. So I really love that relationship they have, and they managed to do with Eremem what they would want to do with Leela, which is educator, in terms of teaching her how to read and teaching her the world and showing her the world. And there's often this little slips that Eremem makes that let you know, hang on, she's not from this time. She's from the long distant past, and so just the way she explores the world is always so creative. Yeah, Big Finish companions. Certainly all the early ones that they created, so much work went into them, and they are fully fledged 3D characters. And I think Big Finish generally makes a better job of Doctor Who companions too. I think Turlough is a much better character on Big Finish than generally he got to play on the TV series. Sarah Sutton Nissa is a much better character in Big Finish. It's partly because she's alone with the Doctor, but partly she's just being written for. It often feels that with the companions, there's a lot of companions in the TARDIS, the writers don't want to write for them. They want to write for their cast, their guest cast. And on TV, you see these people coming in. The Visitation is a perfect example, where they give nothing to the main cast because Eric Saw was more invested in these side characters that he's brought in. They're his characters, and that's who he wants to focus on. And often you see writers on TV, Doctor Who, all the effort is on the characters that they've invented, that they want to emphasise, and it really makes the main cast. And that's actually is a big problem with the Jodie Whittaker era, is that Gaz for 3 years has no character whatsoever. She's the police officer, and really until the last couple of episodes, when she's basically just her and the Doctor, she's just a nothing, which is so sad because it's obviously a good actress, but they just don't know what to do with her, and basically the whole TARDIS crew are irrelevant to the story, and they're not written for at all well. And I mean, I still think when you get the story when Janet Fielding and Sophie Alfred come back, Sophie Aldred come back, those two characters in that one show are so much better written for than the Doctor's own companions. It's just tragic. Well, it's great for them because they get to be fantastic. But you just sort of think, why on earth can't Chris Chibnall write for his own characters? Because he's writing for other people's much better than his own.
To be fair, the Doctor had no character either. But that's another story.
Yeah, not all people would agree with that.
No, many would. Let's talk for a couple of minutes. We'll climb up out of the rabbit hole quick before I get into more trouble, and talk for a minute about Lougarou, because this is a story that was written by Mark Platt, and it is a werewolf story set in, is it Brazil? A lot of it's set in Brazil, or Rio de Janeiro. I think that's what's on the cover, isn't it? And it's starring Peter Davis and Mark Strickson, Fifth Doctor and Turlough, and also I think there are a couple of things that stood out to me. The fact that it was the Fifth Doctor and Turlough on their own. It wasn't the fact that it was a werewolf story, but the cast in this story is absolutely magnificent. It's one of the best casts you will ever get. Eleanor Bron, Bert Kwok. I can't remember who plays the head werewolf, but he had an amazing voice. All the voices, we were talking recently on an earlier podcast, Philip, about being able to not being able to distinguish voices so much these days. This is not where Lougarou had an issue. Every single voice was different and fascinating to listen to. Especially that I haven't got it in front of me, but I can't remember who the actor was who played the head werewolf, but he was just brilliant. Yeah.
Yeah, I must admit, it's one of my favourite audios still to this day. There's some really lovely set pieces. I mean, it's been a while since I've listened to it. There's an episode set on a train, isn't there?
Yes.
Or does it start on a train?
No, it's on a train.
Yeah,
yeah.
I was just remembering.
Is it Turlough gets hurled off as one of the
really
cliffhangers? I can't remember.
Yeah. So really distinctive soundscapes. I think that's part of why the episode's so successful. I mean, I think everyone would know that that early run of Big Finish we both think is just astounding and can listen to over and over again. And that's certainly part of that series, that run. You have complex characters. Eleanor Bron is just amazing in that episode.
Yeah.
And once again, it just lifts everyone's performance. Peter Davis, I think, often on the TV show didn't really get to show what a talented actor he is. I know Janet Fielding describes Peter as one of the best actors of our time, but I think often in Doctor Who you didn't get to see it. There's some audios, and Lucaroo is one of them, where Peter is just acting his socks off, and he's playing against amazing cast, and everyone is just lifted. And so they're taking it seriously. They're obviously all enjoying themselves because it's some bits of it are quite bizarre and would be funny to do. So that there's an affection that you can hear. There's a humor that you can hear, but they're taking it so seriously that it actually really drags you in. So it's one of those stories with a really powerful soundscape. Mark Platt he either does it for me or I have no idea what's going on.
Same here.
And he's written some of the best Big Finish stories there are, and some of the ones I've got no idea what's going on. I wouldn't say it's the worst, but I've got no idea what's going on. This is one which is really one of the best, and it's really clear it's going on. This is about the same time as he would have done the Cyberman story as well, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a bit before. It's the one before Spare Parts. So if I was to pick the two top Mark Platt stories for Big Finish, it would be Spare Parts and this. That's for sure.
Yeah, he really is at the heights of his best writing at this point. Well, in terms of what I like, I know other people like his more out there, wacky stories, but this is a story, and it like a train, it just doesn't let you off. It just drives and drives and drives. It's complex. It's got little twists along the way. It's brilliant dialogue, amazing performances. This is the top 10 Doctor Who Big Finish. I think it'd probably be my top 10.
Yeah.
If I'm maybe not top 8. If I'm ranking them, it's a 9.5, 9.5 out of 10 episode. There's hardly. Well, I can't think of a fault in it at the moment, and I need to go listen to this again too.
We'll have to do a proper deep dive on it at some point. But I didn't want to have Mark Strickson on as and not mention this as probably my favourite Turlough Big Finish story. This one. I might throw in a trailer for Lugaroo. How's that sound? And after that, we'll bring on Mark Strickson.
Stuber Peter. On this 28th day of October, in the year of our Lord God 1589, I do condemn you to public execution for sorcery and the lewd villainies and divers murders which you have committed in shape of a great wolf.
Who's that? Those eyes, black and gold. Who are you?
When the Lugaroo come prowling, we have to hunt them before they hunt us.
There it goes. Oh, my arm, what was it? I didn't see it, was so fast.
A huge wolf.
A wolf?
Yes, a massive grey animal bounding after the monorail.
Doctor, we can't stay here.
No, we have to warn them. Back to the TARDIS, quickly. There's more than one way to catch a train.
Never absolve me. I can never rest. Never. I stalk the earth for eternity.
It is my great pleasure to welcome to the podcast Mark Strickson. Hello, Mark.
Hello. It's really nice to be with you and be talking to Australia, which I love.
Now, it was about 21 years ago, by my calculation, coming up in November, that we last were together in Sydney, and you did an event for me. It was a kind of a musical event because I had Dudley Simpson and I had Tristram Carey, who had both done early Doctor Who music, and you've come from a musical family as well, but also a theatrical family, being where you were born in Stratford-upon-Avon. So tell us a bit about where you grew up.
Oh, yeah. No, I'll talk to you about my first almost nude appearance with Judi Dench, who was almost nude. That's a good start, isn't it?
Yeah.
No. So I was born and brought up in a little village outside Stratford-upon-Avon, which is where Shakespeare came from. I went to the same school as Shakespeare because it was the only school I could go to, right? It wasn't like I was posh or anything. That was the school. But my dad was a musician, and he was a fantastic organist. And the church in Stratford-upon-Avon is a very famous church and has an amazing organ. And that's where he was organist and choir master. And I was in the choir. Obviously, I couldn't not be in the choir, could I? Because my dad was going there.
No choice.
And it was family business. My godfather was always at Ely Cathedral. But interesting, Stratford-upon-Avon is the only church in the UK that the choir boys can wear red, which only cathedrals can wear red. But it's the only other church that can. So it's a very, very important church. And it's a very important church for all sorts of reasons. There's a huge thing on Shakespeare's birthday where people from all over the world send their ambassadors there and whatever. That's where I was born and brought up. And I would go to church 9 times a week. But I was paid to. You see, this was the family business. I was paid. So it was to be honest, it was quite good money. So yes, that's where the music started. And then a guy called Peter Hall, and feel free to go on the internet and look up A Midsummer Night's Dream, directed by Peter Hall, and you'll find me playing a sort of wooden bongo instrument, right? Because they came to the choir and they wanted singers to boys to be fairies in this film with Judi Dench and Ian Richardson, and I was obviously appointed, and so there I am with covered in green paint from head to toe, with Spock ears, pointy ears, right? And a fur cone strategically placed. And you'll find that Judi Dench was about mid-20s at the time. She has 2 ivy leaves over her breasts and not much else on. And that was my start in show business.
Weedy spiders come as near, head too long and spin his heads, beetles like a brush of near, what stealth, don't know offense.
And the only thing I really remember about it was the fact that we had trout and chips for lunch. Trout was a luxury. We had trout and chips for lunch. And my mother, who was, you have to have a carer with you, when you're a kid going on film shoots. She was appalled. I put tomato sauce over it all.
Outrageous.
So how old were you then?
I think I was 8.
So you had a couple of paths that you could have gone down. You could have taken the musical route. So you do play a few musical instruments, don't you?
How I got into acting was going down the musical route, right? I was a French horn. I took up the French horn. Why did I take up the French horn? Because my father was an all-inspiring musician, right? And he played the organ. He played the piano, obviously. He did it at the Royal Academy. The cello was his second instrument, and I just wanted to do an instrument my dad couldn't play. So I chose the French horn, the most difficult instrument in the world to play. Do you know the highest paid person in an orchestra is the first horn? And the reason for that is because it's so exposed as a part, right? And it is such a difficult instrument to play. They are paid more than the leader of the orchestra, the first horn. That is the star of the orchestra, right? Now, I didn't know that, but I thought, well, what's an instrument my dad can't play? So I took up the French horn. Anyway, I was all right at it. I didn't have the right teeth, to be honest. I mean, in retrospect, anybody taking up a musical instrument should check their body, right? Is it right? It's like athletics, right? Are you right for that instrument? And my teeth, I've got slightly, like Peter Davison actually, slightly out of line lower teeth. In the days when Peter and I were brought up, you didn't have dental care in that sense. You didn't have what they have these days, guards and things, and which my sons had. So I'd say slightly, and that created a problem playing the French horn to a high standard. Although I was a very high standard. I was in the local county youth orchestra and things like that, and all that sort of thing. But then my brother applied for the National Youth Theatre. Now my brother used to teach English poetry at Leeds University. He's sort of like a performance artist. I've got a lot of time for my brother, but he applied for the National Youth Theatre. Then he didn't want to turn up for the auditions, so I turned up for his audition, and I got in. And it's a big thing in the UK, the National Youth Theatre. But I got in because I could write music. So I ended up writing the musical scores for the National Youth Theatre. But I got a bit disillusioned by that because I was working my butt off writing scores, right? And the actors seemed to get all the praise. And also, they got all the girls. And I thought, well, that's stupid. Why don't I become an actor? So I applied for the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art. 4,000 people applied a year when I applied for it, and they took 22, and I got in. And I became an actor.
Were there any in your class with you that we might know, or anyone in the years around you? Yes, of
course there were. Bob Dawes, Robert Dawes, Bob. He's done heaps. Kate Buffrey, she's done heaps. They're the two you'd mostly know from my. But Pamela Dillman was in my year, the daughter of Bradford Dillman. If you've ever seen Towering Inferno, you'll know who he is.
Yeah.
It was incredible. So I became an actor.
So that was 2 years of study. What were the highlights of being there?
The highlights of being there were being very poor. I'm being serious.
It's good practice for being an actor to be very poor. It's perfect training.
Well, no, there are two sorts of actors. I had never really met very upper class people until I went to RADA, and then I met some. Some of them were living in the Barbican in penthouse flats. Some of us were living in bedsits. In my case, in a tiny bedsit in Muswell Hill with a rotten floor. And a shower that didn't even have a ceiling, and that was a shared shower between 18 people. It was shit. I had a miserable time as a student. It was really awful. But the class divide between people who had money and who didn't at RADA was incredibly marked, and it made life for those of us who didn't have money very difficult. Once I left RADA, I was very lucky. Well, I was born and brought up in the country, and I love the country. I'm a country boy, really. It's in a sense where I don't live in London, where I live in Dunedin. I can see woods from my house. I don't live outside the city, but I'm surrounded by woods. So I went for an audition for a company called Micron. It means small in Greek. And they travelled, it's had a fundamental effect on my life. They travelled on a narrowboat and did shows in theatres and pubs and whatever all over the UK, and did documentary theatre. And what I learned after that was it was actually founded by a man called Mick and a guy called Ron. So maybe in Greek, maybe small in Greek, but Mick and Ron, Mick Ron. Anyway, it was a wonderful, wonderful experience. We travelled on this massive boat around the UK, and we did shows every night, and I was in it for 2 years. Mark Williams, who you might know from, Mark Williams, the actor, he took over from me. It's been a founding place for lots of quite well-known actors, right? So it was wonderful. It was wonderful. And I had a fabulous 2 years travelling the countryside of the UK and doing shows and writing shows and writing. I had to write music, of course. There you go. We did an album at Abbey Road. That was nice.
So how old were you then?
20. I was 20 when I left RADA. I was 22 when I left Micron. And why did I leave Micron? I left Micron, well, because I thought I should become a proper actor. And so I went down to London, and I'd been writing letters to the Lambeth Housing Association for 2 years by that point, and sending them postcards from my travels. And I managed to get a council flat in Waterloo. At the time, it was an absolutely horrendous estate. It was very, very rough. Now you'd be spending 670 grand to buy a flat there. But when I moved there, it was a really bad estate. And I was moved in partly because I had one of the things I had to do as part of my tenancy was to found a community group and sort of get people together in the community and try and improve the estate. But that was amazing. I had a home in central London. This was amazing, right? And then I became a proper actor. I was very, very lucky. I had a wonderful agent, Jan Evans. She's still my agent. And she got me a job at Angels, which I don't know whether you. Most people know that I come from Birmingham, which is where Mark Williams comes from too. So there were a few of us who turned up at castings. There'd been me, a guy called Ron, the guy called Mark was too young in those days. But I turn up because I've got a Brummie accent. I can just turn it on like that. It is, to be honest, my native accent. And so there you go. And I got cast in Angels. It was a dream job because I was a bloke. I was an ambulance driver. And there was 20 nice young nurses and we all stayed in the same hotel. It was bloody brilliant. So there you go. That was Angels. But it does knock on to Doctor Who because then I did a bit in. So I had this day, and I was offered the lead in Angels because my mate Al Ashton, who had the lead, was ill and he couldn't continue. He's a lovely actor, but he couldn't continue. So they wrote me in as the lead, but didn't ask me. So Tony Holland and Julia Smith, who then went on to write EastEnders, they were the creators of Angels. It was the procedure to EastEnders. So I was being offered the equivalent of the lead in EastEnders, right? So I rang my agent. I said, Jan, look, it's all right, but am I up for anything else? And I had a BBC pass. And she said, you're up for a part in Doctor Who. But she said, I was going to see anybody for eight weeks from now. I said, well, no. All right, I'm up for anything else. She said, you're up for a part in Juliet Bravo as well. Juliet Bravo is a police series. And I said, all right. I said, well, I'm going to have to take this job in Angels, aren't I, if I don't get anything else? And it wasn't that Angels was a bad program, it's just I didn't want to do it. And so I had my BBC pass, and I went to Threshold House, which is on Shepherd's Bush Green in London, and I went up to the Doctor Who office, and I knocked on the door. And a lady called Jane Judge answered it. She was John Levinton's secretary at the time. I said, you don't know me, my name's Mark Strickson. I'm up for a part in Doctor Who, but you're not auditioning for it in the near future. But if John could spare me some time, I'd like to see him. And then she sat me down, got me a cup of coffee, went off into the next room, and John came out and he said, come in, Mark. He said, I'd like to meet Eric Sayward, he's the script editor. I don't think we're both there. And maybe I timed it well, I don't know. Anyway, so they said, actually, we know you. We know you from Angels. Well, the reason for that is because John's partner, Gary, was the production manager in Angels. So that's why they knew me. So anyway, so I read for them. And I did immediately feel I was right for the part. And so did they. So I finished reading, and John said, You're not allowed to tell anybody else this except your agent, but you've got the part. Now remember that the BBC is a public broadcaster, so they would have to have had auditioned after that, right? You have to give everybody a fair go. So, but John said, you've got the part. You're not allowed to tell anybody. So I rang my agent and I said, Jan, I'm allowed to tell you, but I've got the part in Doctor Who. And she said, that's fantastic. So I said, I won't be signing the agreement for Angels. She said, well, another thing she said is, you've got the part in Juliet Bravo as well. They said, this will only happen to you once in your life. You will only be offered 3 jobs in one day, once in your life. And she was absolutely right. It has never, ever happened again.
What was your impression of J&T when you first met him?
I really liked him because he comes from Birmingham like me, and he's got a Birmingham voice like me. Now, most people in New Zealand or Australia would think I've got a posh voice. I haven't got a posh voice at all, right? I've got a Midlands flat voice. And anybody from the UK would immediately identify that, right? I ain't posh, right? And John knew I wasn't, and John wasn't posh either. And on that level, we really connected. Yeah.
And the BBC was full of lots of posh people, though?
Absolutely. I think, I mean, I can't say the story I was about to say. I mean, it's hardly possible.
Yes, you can.
It was hard. It was hardly possible when I started working as a producer to get a producer job in the BBC if you hadn't been to public school.
It has changed now, though, hasn't it?
Oh, what? Well, I mean, I'm quite serious about that. There is a serious class divide in the UK. There's a serious class divide in New Zealand. There's a serious class divide in Australia. But it's more marked in the UK, particularly in the media.
So you went on to play Turlough for a couple of years.
Yep.
How did you get on with the with all the cast?
Oh look, I always say if you go into the office in the morning and you're surrounded by a load of people you don't like, you're not going to enjoy your day. When I went into the office in Doctor Who, and there was Peter and Janet and Sarah and people that, and John, who I got incredibly well with, and it was a lovely crowd. I was, surrounded by affection. It was really, really nice, and it had nothing to do with the work. It had to do with the people I was working with. They were really nice people, and we still get on incredibly well to this day.
Tensions developed between Eric and John Nathan Turner. Were they present at that stage, or were they getting on quite well at that stage?
Though I never found any tension between Eric and John, because maybe it came after I left. They were both, strong-minded people. I mean, Eric's an incredibly bright and intelligent man. I think he was a brilliant script editor, and I think that the scripts when I was in Doctor Who were a lot stronger than they were in many other years, and I would put that down to Eric. So I've got a huge amount of time for Eric. But I've also got a huge amount of time for John. They were very, very different people, but maybe the combination of their two different things made it work. I don't know. But for me, it was a very good creative partnership.
I'll ask this of you straight. Did you enjoy playing the part of Turlough?
Yes, I did. I loved it. I mean, it was great because, I'll tell you, I mean, I've told this story before, but I'll tell it again. On the first day, when we got our scripts for Doctor Who, right, it was all shot on film, the first things. You got to get any rehearsal. So I didn't get any rehearsal at all before I did the first scene I did in Doctor Who, which was with the sports car, the racing car, the Brigadier's car, and the actor Stephen Garlick playing my schoolmate. So I did the scene and finished it and came back, drove off in the car, drove back again. And John said, "Can I have a word, Mark?" I said, "Yeah." Well, you've got to remember, I'm only 22. This is a big bloody deal for me. And he said, "Look, Mark," he said, "can you be any posher?" I said, "No, I can't, John. That's as posh as I get." And he said, "All right, that's fine. That's Turlough. That's you. I'm happy." What a wonderful producer to say that, right? To give you confidence on your first day of filming, right, and say, no, that's fine. We chose you for the part. You can be you. Now, if you're in a series, right, you need to be you. Because if you have to add on all these layers all the time, it becomes incredibly hard work. So I was pretty well much just me, with a few add-ons, which was a joy. It was lovely to be Turlough. I can be Turlough tomorrow. I enjoy being Turlough.
Towards the end, well, in your last episode, actually, you got to play alongside Peter on your own, a little bit like Matthew got to do with Tom.
Yeah,
and I think the chemistry between you two on your own was really nice. And was there?
We get on very well together. So we just
So it would have. It's probably been nice to see that sort of explored a little bit on the audio dramas.
It is, because you brought a couple of the audio dramas. Why do I love Lip Guru? I love Lip Guru, right? Because I've been attachment to South America. I made a series for the Discovery Channel called Lyndall's Lifeline. It was an Australian presenter called Lyndall Davies. Anyway, we took $10,000 into charities all over the world, and we took $10,000 into a charity in Sao Paulo in Brazil. And we went up the Amazon with a veterinary ship. But it's amazing. Why did I stop being an actor? I need to go on a little bit of a diversion here. Why did I stop being an actor? I stopped being an actor because I got bored with pretending to have a life and not having a life. I've travelled the world. I've made films all over the world. My life as an actor for the BBC was working in a studio on a traffic island in Northampton. It doesn't compare. I've been up there, so to take Lip Guru, I've been up the Amazon, with this veterinary ship and whatever, and what I saw was amazing. It was horrifying. It was absolutely awful as it happens, because the deforestation is terrible, right? But what an amazing experience to have, and to be paid to do it. And I've been all over the world and done things like that. From, helicoptered into Sweden, to see wild horses, to Irian Jaya, living on an island off Indonesia for 4 months, filming flying crocodiles that jump out of the trees on you. I mean, what an amazing life. So that's sort of why I gave up acting. I would love to go back to acting now, because I'm tired. And also, nobody will pay me to do the sort of things I used to do. I mean, it was pretty hard on what I used to. Well, it did for years. It was pretty full on, and I enjoy doing that.
Travel's always been a big part of life for a long time. Even your first acting job was changing locations every day and floating around the UK. So why is this? Where did this travel bug come from? The need to see the world.
It didn't really. At the end of the I forget how old I am. At the end of the 80s, right? In the UK, I got a bit disillusioned with politics. Margaret Thatcher had been in for a while. I'm not totally against Margaret Thatcher either. I've grown up and matured. But the weather had been appalling for 3 years in the UK, and I knew that the sun shone in Australia. And when Judy, my wife at the time, and I flew into Australia, there were blue skies, and I thought, yes, it's exactly as it is in the brochure, and it was exactly right. And I don't know why I ever moved from Australia. Because it is a beautiful, beautiful, lovely country with wonderful weather. And I now live next to Antarctica in New Zealand, which is Dunedin. This is where Scott set off, right? he set off for Antarctica. This is where he got his last supplies, where Shackleton got their last supplies. You turn right out of the harbour, left out of the harbour actually, and you hit Antarctica, right? And apparently the Scottish got here, and they got down on their knees, and they thanked God they'd found somewhere with as miserable a climate as Scotland. And that's why they settled here. But they also settled here because it was the biggest gold strike ever in the Southern Hemisphere. Dunedin is an extraordinary city. It looks a bit like Chicago in places. It does not look like any other city in New Zealand. It has these massive granite-built 19th century buildings. They put the map of Edinburgh down and they built it. And the street names are the same. And it's an extraordinary city and a beautiful, beautiful architecturally historic city. I spent a year working for ITV about 9 years ago. 10 years ago. Anyway, running their office in Edinburgh, right? And I had an office off the Royal Mile there. So I have a deep affection for Edinburgh. And Dunedin is like being in Edinburgh. I mean, you can wake up in Dunedin and there are pipe bands playing on Saturday morning. The pipe bands are practicing in the halls. It's more Scottish than Scotland. It's an amazing place. So the travel started because the weather was shit in the UK for three years, and Judi and I left and went to Australia. She's still there, as you know, I'm sure. And we still talk. We're still good friends.
Why did you make the move to Dunedin then?
Because I met a woman.
It's always the way.
It's always the way. I was working in the UK, and my second marriage had broken up, and Animal Planet Discovery asked me to come out to New Zealand to sort of work on a series that they had with a company called Natural History New Zealand in Dunedin, called Up Close and Dangerous, about Cameron getting into very dangerous situations with the wildlife they were filming. And I came out and produced that and met my wife and never left. That was 20 years ago.
So she grew up in...
Yeah, in New Zealand. Yeah, she comes from up the road in Timaru. Since when we've worked in Doha, you know, I've spent 3 years in the Middle East, we've spent a year in Scotland, done all sorts of things. But yeah, but it's not easy to earn a living in television working out of Dunedin. So you got to move your ass.
That's true.
Wouldn't be the first place I'd go to make an industry, no.
No, I am the last man standing in Dunedin. But I'm very lucky because I've made hundreds of hours of television and I have a background that enables me to bring in productions just on my name. So I'm very lucky.
How did you move into documentaries? I mean, you came to Australia to study, then how did the whole documentary thing?
Okay. So then I had a second wife. It's all about wives, isn't it? So then I had a second wife, and I went and I realised that I did a zoology honours degree, got first class honours. I wanted to combine my acting background and knowledge of the media with a science background. So I thought, why don't I make natural history documentaries? Well, where do you make natural history documentaries? You make them in Bristol in the UK. It's where the BBC Natural History Unit is. That's where you need to go. So me and my wife moved to Bristol, rented a cottage, and I started writing films. But there is a Doctor Who story here. So I started writing films, right? And I sent a few film ideas off to independent production companies in Bristol. And a guy called Andrew Buchanan rang me up and he said, hi there. He said, my name's Andrew Buchanan. I'm from Partridge Films. And Partridge Films was a very famous wildlife producer. And he said, you've sent me a couple of program ideas and I'd like to discuss them. He said, but can I ask you? He said, you aren't the Mark Strickson who was in Doctor Who, are you? And I said, yes. I said, I am. He said, well, I'm the Andrew Buchanan who was one of your last production managers on Doctor Who. And Andrew had completely retrained, right? Done a whole business, MBA and everything, had gone into natural history filmmaking. And there I was, 7 years later, right? And that's how I got into natural history filmmaking, was through Doctor Who. in a sense, because without Andrew, I mean, you've got to knock on the right door, and I knocked on the right door. And one of the films that, what was really fascinating was at that time nobody had made films about Australia. Nobody. And I'd done the zoology honours, and I had heaps of contacts in Australia, right? And so we came up with this idea called the 10 deadliest snakes in the world. They took me on, right? As an assistant producer, I think I was paid a pittance, right? Because Andrew said, we can either pay you for your ideas or you can come into the company and work for a pittance. I said, I'll come into the company and work for a pittance, right? So I did. Within 2 years, I was one of the highest paid employees. But anyway, we worked on this idea called the 10 deadliest snakes in the world. They all come out of Australia. Yeah, because I came from Australia. I knew.
I thought we only had 9 of them.
Huh?
Does the black mamba form?
No, not the 10 deadliest snakes in the world at all. No, Australia has them all, right? That's the 10 deadliest snakes in the world, right?
Oh.
Which is why the film was so successful. You know, if you want to hit Discovery Channel was just starting, you pitch them the 10 deadliest snakes in the world, shot in Australia, a country they know nothing about. They're all over it, right? Discovery Channel had just started. It was just starting, right? So I wrote off and found, I wrote off to zoos and wildlife parks. So have you got a good snake handler? And a lady called Terry Irwin sent me in a video of her husband, Steve. And we looked at it. 4 of us looked at it in Bristol. We looked at it and we thought, this guy is either a star or a complete and utter disaster. There's going to be nothing between that and this. And ended up making 10 deadliest snakes in the world with Steve. He was not the easiest person at first. He proved to be fine in the end. I realised after about 4 days on location with him that you needed Terry to be there with him. She was the Steve handler. He could be the snake handler, but I needed Terry there as the Steve handler.
It's quite common to find snakes sunning themselves or absorbing the heat out of the tarmac here in southeastern Queensland. Now, this isn't one of the venomous snakes we're after. This is actually a carpet python. Now, although it doesn't possess any venom, it's still got quite a hefty bite.
And it was the most popular natural history film ever shown in the UK.
Wow.
And I became a star director overnight once that film was shown. And I haven't stopped making documentaries ever since.
Yeah, I mean, Terry Irwin still runs the Irwin family brilliantly.
I think I should say though that if people have seen my other interviews, this will bore you, but it's really important what we did with the Steve Irwin film. Until that point, natural history had been shot with a camera on a tripod. We took the camera off the tripod. And we got down onto the level of the snakes and we ran with Steve. You have no idea what a risk that was at the time. Nobody had ever done that before, right? Now, when the film presented, it's all handheld. Nobody had ever done it before, right? So we sent these rushes back, and I got back to the UK, and I was pretty much sacked on the spot. My executive producer said, "We're up for a reshoot here. It's completely incompetent. You've never heard of a tripod." And as I say, it was the most successful natural history film that's ever been shown in the UK. So there you go. Huge thanks to my cameraman who took the risk with me, right? But also, we shot it on video. Nobody had shot anything. It's that long ago, right? We shot it on Digi-Betacam, a video camera, right? So we could roll and roll and roll and roll. Previous to that, documentaries have been shot on film. Film's incredibly expensive, right? So we could just shoot and shoot and shoot. So we were the absolute pioneers of modern documentary making in terms of presenters. It is the film that changed that world.
Did you have anything to do with Steve after that?
Yeah, I had loads to do with Steve. I always kept in touch, Yeah, I was run by Reuters on the day. I was in the edit room on the day that Steve was killed. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Which was incredibly sad. Steve and I were almost exactly the same age. So there was a poignancy in that as well. So, I feel very sad about Steve's death, but I was flying out to Indonesia that day to do a shoot, so I told Reuters, "You better get a crew here quickly," and they got one there within 2 hours, and they interviewed me in the edit room. And I went to the airport, and the guy at the check-in said, "You're not the guy," and I said, "Yeah." He said, yeah, you're the guy who was just on the news talking about Steve Irwin, aren't you? Because it sometimes happens to me still with Doctor Who. You're the guy who was on Doctor Who years ago. It sometimes happens to me. Which is, I find completely weird, because I think I look completely different. But, yeah.
Process-wise with a documentary, then, if you're designing a documentary, you obviously decided the topic was going to be the 10 deadliest snakes. In terms of, you just go and film as much material as you can, you edit it, then
you write a script. For God's sake, that's why you have to write a script. You have to get it passed by the channel. They then put in $600,000. They're not going to. You have to go and see the channel in America. You have to write a script. You have to know exactly what you're going to film, or about what you're going to film. No, it's not this. It's not this flaky world.
Yeah. So everything once again comes down to the script.
Yeah.
And the story you tell.
Absolutely. Yep. It comes down to story. Yeah. It's all about story. Yeah. Alfred Hitchcock. There's 3 things you need to know when you make a film. The first is story. The second is story. The third is story. That's it in documentary as well. And I bang that into anybody who comes into my rooms. Because that's how you earn a living. You earn a living by telling stories. I am a storyteller above all else.
You write all your scripts?
Yeah. I've never's ever written a script for me. That's the clue. You have to be a writer. Essentially, I'm a writer.
Yeah. And you didn't want to present any of your stuff in front of the camera as well?
I have presented stuff, but life gets too short. I mean, I just get busy. And I don't mind presenting, but it doesn't bother me. I don't want to be in front of the camera. And to be honest, I make an hour's television every 5 weeks. I'm bloody busy, right? I've made hundreds of hours of television. I am a television factory. It isn't a thing I do as a, like, I don't watch my documentaries. I made so many documentaries, I've lost count. I don't watch them. I make them and push them out there. It's not a big thing for me making a documentary. It's like driving the bus for me. I drive the bus around and I've started making another documentary. It's another 5 weeks, another bloody documentary.
Wow.
Do you still enjoy it?
Yes, I do. I still find it really, really rewarding because I've only ever made documentaries that I want to make that have messages to tell. I've never made anything else. I mean, the current series that I make, Rich House, Poor House, which is for Channel 5 in the UK, and it's also showed on Netflix and things. It's shown on TV New Zealand. Well, it's showed on, I think it's shown on ABC as well. Right, but it's about a poor family swapping with a rich family for the week, right? Now, go into a commissioning editor's office, right? Commissioning editor office, right? In a TV channel, right? And you go in there and say, I've got this really great idea. It's about poor people. It's about how they struggle. I mean, you're going to be thrown out the door. But it's an incredibly clever format because they swap houses, they swap budgets. The rich people understand exactly how poor a lot of people are in this world. And they suffer because we make them live on that budget, right? And I don't know another program in the world that shows how poor people are in rich societies and the difference between the rich and the poor. It's massive. So they go from having a £30 spending budget for the groceries a week to a £2,000 spending budget. If I don't make you cry at the end of every episode of Rich House, Poor House, I ain't done my job. And that's what it's about. Storytelling and changing the way people think and showing them things about life that educate them, but also a watchable, entertaining television. I never make anything that doesn't have a message.
Can I ask if there's any documentaries you've made about Tasmania? Because I know Philip's in Sydney, I'm here in Tasmania.
Oh, I have, yeah.
Lots of mainlanders don't even know where Tasmania is.
No, I go to Tasmania to make a documentary. I made a Lyndall's Lifeline in Tasmania, which is that series where he took $10,000 in for Animal Planet. To be honest, it was about Tasmanian devils, and it was partly about Tasmanian devils. It was about Thylacines as well. It was, I can't quite remember why we made it. I'm sorry, I don't remember every program I made. I have literally made about 800 hours of television. I cannot remember it all, right? But I remember coming to Tasmania. I've got quite an amusing story about Tasmania. I came there with my second wife down there, and we came on holiday, right? And it was lovely. And went up the east coast, right? And going up to these remote beaches. Bloody brilliant. Water's a bit cold, right? It doesn't bother me, right? I'm out there in me budgie smugglers, right? Going out, chucking myself in, right? Nobody else in the water. I can't understand why it is, right? And later on, they had a great white shark in it. Nobody was swimming. That's why nobody was in the water. But then the other thing was, we went up above Wineglass Bay. We walked up to the top of the mountain above Wineglass Bay on the west coast of Tasmania, right?
Yep.
And got to the top, and then sat down there, and we'd taken our sandwiches, sat down and a Japanese couple arrived, right? They walked up there, right? And the Japanese couple said, "Are you staying here?" I said, "Oh, well, we're having a sandwich, could you give us 10 minutes? I said, yeah. She said, okay, would you take some photos of us? I said, yeah. She said, okay, we've got to go and change. This is on the top of the mountain, right? So they disappear off into the bush, and she comes out in this beautiful kingfisher blue dress with high heels on, and he's got a suit on, right? And they just wanted some photos, some basically post-wedding photos taken on top of the mount. So I took the photos, and then they went back and got changed and got into their tramping gear again. That was one
went
of
back
the
into the bush, got
weirdest
changed
things
again.
that ever happened to me.
I'll never be able to go up there again and not think of that story.
It was totally peculiar. There you go.
So, in the midst of all this business that you have and all this documentary making, how did you come to start doing some Big Finish work?
Well, they got in touch and paid me. No, it's not just that. It is lovely. It is absolutely lovely to revisit the character and get together with Peter, Janet, Sarah, and lots of other. I really miss acting, right? I didn't not stop acting by choice. I stopped acting by default. I became a very, very successful producer. So I stopped acting by default. I'd love to do some acting now. I'm coming up to retirement age. I can't retire for about another 4 or 5 years because I've got a 70-year-old boy to support. But there you go. I think I did one of the first. I think I did possibly the first Big
Number
Finish. Number two.
Number two.
Yeah, but I thought, what an amazing thing to do. And I love audio. Right? So, and I've loved doing them ever since. And I do try and get over to London and do them. Because seeing the old crowd, being there with them, there's nothing beats it. It's brilliant. Right? But often I've had to do them from New Zealand as well.
Is that a COVID thing? Since COVID, they've been doing more from New Zealand?
No, not at all. The fact that I'm too busy to get to the UK.
Yeah.
It's quite simply my calendar. I cannot get there. So it's just that. I was hoping to go over this time, and I even had some appearances booked in the UK and things, but my calendar got too busy, and I just can't leave. Which is weird. I'm making stuff for the UK. So I'm making Richard's Plus for Channel 5, but I'm stuck in New Zealand making it. I can't get to the UK, which is totally peculiar. but that's the way it is.
Yes, I mean, so Janet is cursing you for not going over.
Yes, no, Janet. Well, no doubt. Cursed me on camera. We're doing a thing for the BBC as well, which I've also had to cancel. But I'm doing it. I'm doing some green screen stuff and whatever to be dropped into it for the BBC. And I'm sure Janet will abuse me on that.
Yeah, I have heard about that as well.
Where we have apparently a live Zoom call or Teams call in which Peter and Janet are going to abuse me for not being there. But there you go, mates. I ain't retired. I've got a job. I've got to get on with it.
Yeah.
So thank goodness for things like DVD, where you've got to get and do the commentaries and the documentaries, and then Blu-ray that comes and you've got to do it all again and do new documentaries. All these and us fans just keep buying it over and over again.
I'm so grateful that I ever did Doctor Who. Doctor Who is the gift that keeps on giving. I mean, it gives me still an acting sort of side to my life, which has been a massive sort of relief for me over the years. I love acting. And if asked to describe myself, I'd probably describe myself as a producer. But I think that I'd also describe myself just as much as an actor. It's deep in my soul. It's just a lovely thing to do. And if you can do it, which I think I can, it's a really God-given gift. So it's I don't look on it lightly at all.
With your musician's background, so you always got an ear for music and ear for voice. You're producing and you're writing. Do all those things sort of work together in terms of making a better audio performance, do you think?
Yeah, I have to cut music every day of my life as a documentary producer, right? So yeah, music's a huge part of my life. Interestingly, I hardly listen to music as a leisure thing. If I do, I have classical music on when I'm writing. I listen to Classic FM, which is a UK station. I have that on when I'm writing. But because I work so hard with images and music, when I come home, I pretty much only listen to the radio, the spoken word. I never watch television. I don't even possess a television. But you have to understand that I watch images for 9 or 10 hours a day, and a bus driver doesn't get home and have a bus parked outside and drive around the block for fun in the evening. So I don't come home and watch television for fun. It's, to me, a business that I do, which I enjoy and find very fulfilling, but not something that I watch for pleasure, ever. I just don't watch it. But I do listen to the radio a lot. I listen to audio books, and I listen to Radio 4, and I listen to BBC Worldwide. They're my drugs. I go to sleep at night with earphones in, listening to BBC Worldwide. And I fall asleep with earphones in. And then I wake up in the morning and pop them in again. Yeah, so audio is my world, outside my working world.
You were telling me earlier about the best paying job you've ever had. Tell us about that.
Oh, that was the Strepsils advert, yeah. Advertising is very well paid, assuming they sell it to multiple channels and across the world, which they did in that case with that advert. All I had to do was stand there, pretend to suck a Strepsils sweet, and then they sort of computerised my body. And that was it. I earned a fortune out of it. I earned 20 grand.
Good grief.
40,000 Australian dollars. Come on. Pretty good.
For a day's work.
Wow. A day's work. Never earned that much money ever again.
Oh, this sore throat hurts. Oh no. Don't swallow. Don't swallow. That hurts. Oh, what's he got now? Oh, Strepsils anaesthetic throat spray. That's new. Oh, anaesthetics penetrating the nerve index. Pain's going. Strepsils quick. Doesn't even hurt to swallow. Think we feel like lunch.
New Strepsils anaesthetic throat spray relieves pain fast.
In terms of documentary making, is every day a bit different? I mean, are you doing writing some days, editing other days?
No, every day is exactly the same.
Okay.
Right? It's not exactly the same. I get about 120 hours worth of footage to make a program in 6 weeks, a 90-minute slot program in 6 weeks, right? So I sit down and immediately write the first 2 parts without even looking at any of the footage, because I know the background to the families. This is Richard's Poorhouse, right? So I know what I want out of it, and I know what I need. And then I work through scripts and highlight everything in them that I think is worth taking. By that point, within 2 or 3 days of me starting, my editor's on board and pulling out footage, right, and constructing the sequences. But you don't muck around. You got to have part 1 cut in 4 days, 5 days. You got to have part 2 cut within 7 days, and you've got to have a 1.5 hour program cut within 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and it's got to be fully scripted. So I teach people how to produce and edit. And my basic template is, I say, write on your wall, don't fuck around. You have to start writing script day 1 and get that story down, get it down. You have to have 15 minutes, 10 minutes of television cut within 5 days. You're not going to get there otherwise. It's hard, bloody work. I'm very good at it now, so it doesn't stress me. If I was starting in my job now, at 25 years old, 30 years old, I'd be stressed out of my brain. But I'm not, and that's why I'm paid to do what I do, because I've got the years of experience to do it.
Are there any programs you're dying to make and just can't because you're too busy?
No, I'm dying to retire. No, really, I would love not to do anything. I'd love to just sit in the back garden whittling a stick or something. I love building, so I would keep going with the building. But I've made so much television that I really enjoy doing what I'm doing and making television, right? But I've made so much television, I don't have any ambition to make any more. If I didn't have a 17-year-old son, I could retire now. But I do have a 17-year-old son, and he's
see your work,
and I want to leave him in a situation where he's really interested in property, right? So he wants to, do my property stuff, right? So I need 3 or 4 years more to teach him how to do that, right? Then I've got a lot of building skills, and he needs to learn those. He needs to learn from the builders that I use as well. He's not quite ready for it yet. But he's not at school anymore, which is fine. School doesn't suit everybody. And he's a hard worker. So that'll be all right. But that requires me to be hands-on 3 or 4 years more. And television is the stuff, is how I earn my money.
Yeah.
So I'll keep doing it. Thank you very much.
And a bit of audio work as it comes in.
Yeah. I mean, that's the fun. That's the joy. I mean, it's lovely. I mean, I remember doing Luke Garou. It was lovely. It's a lovely thing to do. I had so much fun doing it. I have fun every time I do a Big Finish program. I have fun every time I act. Acting is fun for me. It's a really lovely paying hobby. But I don't treat it as a hobby because I'm very professional about it.
You got to work with Bert Kwok in that one, Kato himself.
Yeah. What amazing! That's it. How fantastic is that? So hey, what a small village acting is. So the first company I was an actor in was Mick Ron, right? Mick, Mike Lucas, and Ron Legg was his name, his acting name, right? Right. Now Ron Legg, right, changed his name to Daniel Schiller because he knew Jews did well in show business. This is a true story. So he changed his name to Daniel Schiller. Now, if you look in the credits of the Inspector Clouseau films, you'll find Daniel Schiller there, right? So if you remember the guy who answers the door, and there's a bomb, and he says, "A bomb?" Right? Right? That's Danny Schiller, right? Anyway, so he was the Ron of Mick Ron. First.
Oh, wow.
It's a small world.
There you go. I think Eleanor Bron was in that one too, wasn't she?
Eleanor Bron was in it, yes. And she was lovely to work with. Again, terribly posh. I'd never met people as posh as this until I became an actor, right? Eleanor Bron said to me, she said, you come from the Midlands, don't you? And I said, yes. So how would you say Coventry? I said, Coventry. It's called Coventry. No, Coventry. The city, Coventry. I said, yeah, we call it Coventry. There you go. She was lovely. She was a lovely person. Very posh.
So what's a typical studio day look like with Big Finish?
Oh, studios are great. You go. I had a lovely time working for Big Finish at one point. There was a pub up the corner, and I used to rent a room in the pub. So I had a room. I remember sitting in the room with my heater on and watching snow coming down. It was magical. I thought, oh God, I love this. I love being in England. I do love England. I really miss England. But so I was there, and then you wander down, and you have a sandwich at the cafe, and then you wander in, and all your mates are there, and you have a fun morning, acting and doing stuff and being silly. Then you have lunch, a lovely lunch cooked for you. This is what actors don't realise, everything's laid on for you as an actor. As a producer, I have to lay on everything for everybody.
That's right.
As an actor, a taxi picks you up, you take him there. As long as you know the lines and don't knock the furniture over, it's all good. It's so relaxing, acting. It's amazingly relaxing, right? And there's another thing, acting's like yoga, right? The moment you start reading a script or acting, right, and somebody says action and you start doing it, you forget all the worries in your life until you stop doing it, until that scene finishes. Nothing else features in your life. That's like yoga. It's what you try and get with yoga, that feeling of release from the body and all your tensions. And I really miss that I don't get that in my job. I go to bed worried about my job. I wake up worried about my job. I'm stressed all day long. Not too stressed, but I'm stressed all day long. But I never get that release that you get with acting, which is a total gift. It's wonderful. I'm very, very jealous of people who can earn their living out of acting. But I wouldn't have had the life I've had if I'd been an actor. And I've had an incredible life. And I wouldn't have had that if I'd stayed in London being an actor. So I don't have any regrets. Acting's a joy.
I think it's always sad you never did any musical theatre. I think you were well set up for a bit of musical theatre.
No, I wasn't. I can sing. I can sing, right? But I know I'm a very good musician. I'm a good enough musician to know I haven't got a great voice. I have sung all my life, right? So other people would probably say I had a good voice, but I know I don't have a good voice, right? Not a musical theatre voice, right? So
Peter Davis ended up on the musical theatre stage. One would have thought that would have happened.
Oh, Peter's got a much better voice than me. He's got a tenor voice. It's much more suitable, right? I've got a bass voice. His voice is much more suitable for musical theatre than mine is. So yeah. I've got a deep voice, which doesn't sit very well in musical theatre.
A few roles, but yes.
It's nice to have as a speaking voice, but it's not. It's a difficult voice for musical theatre. You're very, very stuck in what you can say. Also, I can't dance. I'm crap at dancing. Absolutely it, right? I had a director, right? I'm not embarrassing at a disco or something like that, right? But I had Ewan Smith, his name was. He directed the RSC, but he directed me at RADA as well, Royal Academy, and he was doing Blood Brothers up in Liverpool. And he said, Mark, you'd be great for this part, because I can do accents and shit. And he said, you'd be great for one of the parts in Blood Brothers. And he said, all I need you to do is we're doing some dance auditions down at the Pineapple Dance Studio in Covent Garden. He said, but basically, mate, you got the part, but you just need to do a dance audition. So I went down to this Pineapple Dance Studios. Ewan was there with the choreographer, right? I did this dance audition. He said, fuck, Mark, you are right. You can't dance. So I said, told you, mate. Why have you wasted my time?
You can't think of any dance numbers in Blood Brothers, but okay.
So being where you are, does that kind of limit your opportunity to do as many Doctor Who?
Do anything?
I'm at the end of the world.
I'm finished. Well, I thought I was at Tasmania until I...
No, you're not at the end of the world. I'm 7 hours on from you. Dunedin is as far away from Australia as the UK is from North Africa.
Good grief.
Takes me 6
What I
hours
was going to
to get
ask
to Australia.
Does it really?
Yes. I have to fly from Dunedin to Christchurch, which is an hour and a half. I then have to have an hour's layover in Dunedin. It's then 4.5 hours down to Brisbane or Sydney. It takes a whole day for me to get from Dunedin to Sydney.
Why would you live there?
I guess that's true.
Because I met a woman I fell in love with and moved here.
A woman. It's always a woman.
Welcome to the Somnus Tower. Our foundation is happy to extend its hospitality to all visitors.
You know, just for a change, it might be nice to ignore one of these unscheduled stops. Just pass it by.
Do you have even the first inkling of how dangerous it would be to ignore a phase-displaced area of the continuum?
Have you ever wondered about the fate of your species?
Turlough, we're in the midst of a time fracture, the formation of a branch point where history is about to diverge from its established path.
Many cultures predict an end to humankind in the near future. An Armageddon that will end the world.
The sky! It's so black! Where are all the stars?
Dead. All save one. There.
In Somnus, we share the belief of a manifest destiny for our species. A future where human instrumentality evolves into a form beyond our crude flesh and blood.
Time doesn't care about us. It doesn't care about the lives of the little people. Big events, all that huge history rolls down like an avalanche and we get crushed underneath. You push time, time pushes back.
We know the future of man. There is no deity to worship in our church. With Somnus, we will become our own gods and be one with the stars.
The Doctor will be punished 1 billion times over for his betrayal of our species.
But they have a plan, and it will unmake everything it touches. And humans will become gods, and all of history will shatter like glass.
Change and evolution, death and rebirth.
Our thanks to Mark for joining us, and who knows, he may be at Australian shores one day, because he's not that far away, Philip.
No, I know. Wouldn't it be great to have him come? Just imagine.
Wouldn't it be wonderful? Let's recommend something before we sign off for this episode, and what I'd like to recommend is, well, I can't recommend something because it's your turn, Philip.
Fantastic. I'm going to recommend something I've been watching. I don't think I've recommended this before. Yeah, so Brom and I have been watching the story Ted Lasso. So we're sort of towards the end of the 3rd season now, and we're getting sad because we thought it was coming to the end, but we've heard they're making a 4th season. Yay. Ted Lasso, American, altogether nice American guy, goes off to England to coach an English soccer team that's failing. And just, bring his own little American brand of, apple pie to the English shores. It's got some amazing characters, and aside from the main cast, which are brilliantly played, and it's got is it Hannah Waddington Just the whole cast, the main cast, are brilliant. But aside from them, you've got all these tiny little minor characters, but they're so well written. They've got these little character traits, and you become quite affectionate by them. And then some of them that get some major storylines along the way, because obviously people have grown to love them so much, even though they were originally just little background characters. And they bring them to the front and then move them back again. But in terms of just a show with heart, it doesn't quite go where I expected. You sort of expect certain endings to happen because you expected sort of the American tropes to happen. But because it's more British than American, then it suddenly skews off to a side direction. And the happy ending you're expecting doesn't quite happen the way you're expecting it. And so you're never really quite sure where it's going. But yeah, we're just loving it. It's just a good show for Brom and me to watch together. And yeah, a few more episodes to go. But Ted Lasso has been great. What about you, Dwayne?
Well, speaking of watching something with our wives, I've started watching a series which I've watched a couple of episodes now, and she wanted to get into it. It's called The 100. Have you seen that or heard of it? It's a science fiction series.
Is it a game show?
No. It's a science fiction show where there is a group of humans who have been on this space station for almost 100 years because the Earth had nuclear bombs go off on it, and they've got a different kind of law and structure for their society where anyone who's over the age of 18 breaks any law, they're put to death. And it's basically population control because they can't all fit on the spaceship. So they're at the stage of going back to Earth, and they send a bunch of kids back to Earth to find out whether it's habitable or not, kids who have been locked up in jail because they're delinquents. And yeah, it's kind of got me in, except I don't know if anyone's seen it. The jump cuts and the edits of these, it's just so much, it makes me dizzy. I was actually saying it out loud today. I said, oh man, can they stop with the jump cuts? I can't cope with it. It's making my eyes spin. So I don't know how much I'll keep going with it, but the story has me intrigued, so I do want to keep going at this point. But I do want to recommend something that I've been listening to. I haven't got all the way through it yet, but since we've been talking to Mark Strickson, there was one story that always stood out to me from the second 100. And it was a trilogy of stories that Mark appeared in as Turlough, and it had Nyssa, Tegan, and Turlough from season 21. You may be, the Kiss of Death is the name of the story that I'm referring to, and they referred to Nyssa was talking about being on Terminus, and I'm thinking, hang on a second, that can't be right. She left at Terminus. But it's actually an older Nyssa who's come back, and I'd forgotten about that.
Old Nyssa.
I've forgotten about that. She's about 50 years old.
Yeah.
So she's basically playing her age at the time, or maybe a touch older than she was at the time that they recorded it. So, so that's interesting. But Kiss of Death stood out to me because it's a bit of a romance for Turlough. He's front and center on the cover, so it's Turlough focused. And, really interesting set of stories if you're curious to see how they go, because some companions have come back. They brought Nyssa back older, Mel's come back older, so that's a fascinating thing that Big Finish have done too, bringing those companions back for a second trip in the TARDIS. But that's what I would recommend if you want a Turlough centric story. Kiss of Death.
Indeed, actually, that whole, I think there's 9 or 12 stories in that sort of run with the old Nyssa, because it's sort of, they leave Terminus and immediately they find Nyssa again.
That's right. It's straight away. Isn't it?
It's straight away. But suddenly Nyssa's 50 years older. She's doing research, and then bit by bit you work out the fact she's actually got a whole family. Because I think she's got a son called Adric.
She does.
And so bit by bit things get revealed about her life. Do they go to E-Space? I'm just trying to think. I'm trying to think.
I think Andrew Smith.
Series, I think
there's a story by Andrew Smith in that run called Mistfall. So they must do something in E-Space. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure they end up in E-Space. All of them end up in E-Space.
Yeah.
Because I'm pretty sure how it ends. Because there's a pretty dramatic end for this one, if I remember properly. It's been a while. Once again, I've not listened to the stories since they've come out.
There's a lot to go back and re-listen to, isn't there? While we're trying to keep up with all the new stuff.
For sure.
All right.
Yeah, which I'm not doing very well after that.
Well, thanks once again to Mark Strickson for joining us today. It's been wonderful to be in his company, been wonderful to be in your company, Philip.
And yours.
Until next time, we'll catch you all then.
Bye, everyone.
This has been the Sirens of Audio, Still Trying, with our guest Mark Strickson and your hosts Philip Edney and Dwayne Bunny. Theme music by the Music Therapy Experiment. Catch up with all the latest info, including news on our live events at sirensofaudio.com. Don't forget to subscribe to our brand new podcast, Blake 7, The Way Back. Contact us via email at sirensofaudio@gmail.com or find us on all our social media at Audio Sirens. Thanks for listening, audiophiles. We'll hear you next time.